we just need to go ahead and, yes sir, good afternoon.
Afternoon po. Tuloy na tayo sir kasi nakamarami So, pa-record na lang ulit sir para meron. Hello?
Record ko na lang.
Pa-record na ulit sir para meron. Thank you.
Okay sir. Sige sir, okay.
Recording in progress.
Okay guys, again, if you have already the answers regarding with these multiple choice questions, I'm encouraging you to key in or to type your answers in our chat box so that I could understand and I could just check if you already understand the topic that we have been discussed last week. Okay, this is regarding with budgeting methodologies or budgeting techniques. Okay, again, once we're answering the multiple choice question, we just need to read first the question so that we could know what are the requirements that the problem is asking for. Okay, number 12, based on this information, the budgeted direct materials purchases for the coming period would be budgeted direct materials purchases. So when we're attacking or when we just encounter the same problem or the same question, we just need to know the formulas that we have been discussed last week. If you already memorized it or remember, then it's an easy thing to do, or it's very easy for us to solve this problem or this question. Stevens Company manufactures electronic components used in automobile manufacturing. Each component uses two raw materials, which is Geo and Clio. Standard usage of the two materials required to produce one finished electronic component, as well as the current inventory, are shown below. So there are two materials being used by Stevens Company in for the electronic component. The Geo and the Clio, the standard per unit, 2 pounds for Geo and the Clio 1.5 pounds. Price 15 per pound, 10 per pound for Geo and Clio respectively, and then they have their own inventory at 5,000 pounds and 7,500 pounds. Stevens forecast sales of 20,000 components for each of the next two production periods. Company policies dictates that 25% of the raw materials needed to produce the next period's projected sales be maintained in ending direct materials inventory. So the main question now is how much will be the direct materials purchases for the coming period. So budgeted direct materials purchases, so it should be the total amount or the total materials purchase. So how could we do that? Since both sales or the units to be sold are given 20,000 each, so 20,000, and then there's no production or something or required like target ending inventory, beginning inventory, it mentioned there, the raw materials needed to produce. So we just need to multiply first the 20,000 components for Geo at 2 pounds, and then Clio 20,000 times 1.5 pounds. And then the beginning inventory, we should get it from the 25%. So do you have your answers, guys? Can you just key in your answers, please? And 20,000 times 2, and then ending inventory, so 40,000 times 0.25 for Geo, and then less the 5,000 pounds current inventory, and then multiplied by 15. And then for Clio, 20,000 times 1.5, which I believe it's 30,000, times 0.25. I-add natin yun since yun yung target ending inventory, and then less 7,500 pounds, and then multiplied by 10 per pound. So as far as I know, the correct answer for number 12 is letter B, 675,300,000. Let's see the calculation. Yeah, it's letter B. In sales, 20,000, and then pounds required, so that we could know how much are the total pounds to produce one component for each product. And then we just need to add their ending inventory, their desired ending inventory, which is 25% of the projected sale. So 40,000 times 25%, and then 30 for Clio, and then we just need to deduct their beginning inventory so that we could know how many pounds were purchased. So 45 for Geo, and then for Clayo 30,000, then multiplied by the price per pound, which is 15 for Geo, and then Clayo 10. So we would get total materials purchased around 665,000 for Geo, and then Clayo 300,000. So the only technique for this kind of problem is we just need to know, or we just need to be familiarized regarding with the formula, and then we could easily substitute the figures, and then we could arrive the correct answer. Okay, let's proceed with the next question, with the next problem. How many units should Streeter produce in the second quarter? How many units should Streeter produce in the second quarter? Streeter Company produces microwave turntables. Sales for the next year expected to be 65,000 units in the first quarter, 72,000 units in the second quarter, and 84,000 units in the third quarter, and 66,000 units in the fourth quarter. Streeter usually maintains a finished goods inventory at the end of each year, at the end of each quarter, equal to one half the units expected to be sold in the next quarter. However, due to work stoppage, the finished goods inventory at the end of the first quarter is 8,000 units less than it should be. So for second quarter, how many units should be produced? So again, we should start with the number of units sold for the second quarter, which is 72,000. And then we just need to add the ending inventory, which is 50% of the units expected to be sold in the next quarter. So since this is second quarter, we should go with the third quarter, 84,000 times 0.5, which is 41,000. So 72,000 plus 41,000. So how about the ending inventory? The ending inventory will be 72,000 times 0.5%, which is 36,000. Right? But there's another information that at the end of the first quarter, it's 8,000 units less than it should be. So we just need to deduct that 8,000 from the beginning inventory, because the only thing that we need to use are the goods, are the good units. So how many units should be produced by Streeter, considering all the figures that I have stated? Okay, so let's see. The correct answer is 86,000. It's letter D. Did you get the same answer, guys? Okay, so I believe you got it the same answer. So I shall go ahead with the next problem. What is the budgeted production for the first quarter? So again, budgeted production is the same thing. So we will start again from the formula C, sales, or the number of units sold, plus beginning inventory, plus ending inventory less beginning inventory. So Xavier Corporation assembles backup systems for home computers. For the first quarter, the budget for sales is 67.5 units. Xavier will finish the fourth quarter of last year with an inventory of 3,500 units, of which 200 are obsolete. So 200 cannot be used, or these 200 units are obsolete, and it can be used to manufacture any good. So we just need to deduct this 200 from 3,500 units so that we could get only the good units. And then the target ending inventory is 10 days of sales based upon 360 days. So what is the budgeted production for the first quarter? So guys, once na-encounter nyo yung ang problem regarding with the 360 days, always assume that per month, it consists of 30 days. So if it is quarterly, then 90 days, and then semi-annually, it should be 180 days. Since it's given here is 67,500 units for the first quarter, then we could determine that the target inventory constitutes of the 10 days sales. So 67,500 divided by 90 so that we could get the per day sales and then multiplied by 10 in order to get the 10-day sales, which represents the target ending inventory, which should be added to 67,500 less 3,300 units. So again, we deducted the 200 obsolete units from 3,500 units. So here's the calculation or the computation. Sales 67.5, ending the desired or the ending inventory required 7.5, and then the beginning inventory, which is 3,300. So the total units that were produced for the first quarter is 71,700. Okay, let's proceed with the next number. How many units should Ming plan to produce in the next fiscal year? So number of units produced again. So Ming Company has budgeted sales at 6,300 units for the next fiscal year and decides to have 590 good units on hand of that year. So beginning inventory is 470 units. Then Ming has found out from past experiences that 10% of all units produced do not pass the final inspection and must therefore be destroyed. So how many units now should Ming plan to produce in the next fiscal year? So from here, Ming is being asked how many units that will be produced covering the 10% units that did not pass the final inspection, so that we could produce the good units based on the requirement. So again, we should start from the budgeted sales, which is 6,300. Same thing, plus the ending inventory, which is 590 good units, less 470 units. Then we should divide it by 90%, so that we could cover up the 10% units that were not passed the final inspection. So for this number, the correct answer is letter C, 7,133 units. Next. Okay. If Netco institutes the price increase for item 1, the total sales revenue will decrease by. So what if analysis to? Or scenario analysis. We just need to understand all the situations or all the changes that are going on regarding with this problem. So let's read all these together. So Netco sales budget for the coming year is as follows. So there are three items. The item 1, 2, and 3. The volume in units, 200,000, 150,000, and 300,000 units for 1, 2, and 3. The sales price, 50, 10, 30, and then the sales revenue, 10 million, 1.5, and 9 million total is 20.5 million. So these are the scenarios or additional information. Items 1 and 3 are different models of the same product. Item 2 is a complement to item 1. And then past experience indicates that the sales volume of item 2 relative to sales volume of item 1 is fairly constant. So meaning to say that any activity or when it comes to the volume of item 2, it should have an impact or the same impact with the volume of item 1. Then Netco is considering a 10% price increase for the coming year for item 1, which will cause sales of item 1 to decline by 20%. So 10% increase for item 1, and then the actual level of activity will decline by 20%. So meaning to say, the price of $50 for item 1 will increase by 10%. So 50 times 1.10, so that we could incorporate the 10% change in the selling price. But the activity or the volume will be lesser by 20%. So 200,000 times 80%, so that we could get that net of 20%. So 160,000 lang yung volume ng item 1. So meaning to say, it has an impact as well to the item 2 activity from 150,000 times 0.8 as well. Then while simultaneously causing sales of item 3 to increase by 5%. So the activity or the volume for item 3 from 300,000, it will increase by 5%. Then if Netco institute the price increase for item 1, total sales revenue will decrease by. So meaning to say, with comparison of the previous sales revenue or the current sales revenue versus the sales revenue attributed considering these changes or this additional information given in the problem. So I'm giving you 2 minutes, guys, to answer if you don't have yet your answer here. This is a good question for budgeting as well. Kasi mostly IMA, they're just giving some questions when it comes to the comparison of data or yung impact regarding with the decision, if they will be incorporating the changes or not. Okay, I think you have your own answer. So I think the correct answer for number 16 is letter A, 1,050,000. So these are the sample computation from the current 20 and a half, and then after considering the different assumptions, the total sales revenue would be 19,450,000. So meaning to say, after incorporating all the assumptions, there is a decrease in the sales revenue by 1,050,000. Kasi from 20 and a half, it became 19,450,000. So if there's additional question, which one would be better, the current scenario or the scenario under different assumptions? So the better results is the current scenario or the current activity, which is 20 and a half. Okay, let's go with number 17. Assuming that all inventory standards are currently met, what is the direct labor budget for period 1? So again, to answer this problem, we should know or familiarize again, or we know how to calculate the formula for direct labor budget. Again, you should start from the sales or the sold units, and then you could come out with the total production units or the units produced. Then you should multiply regarding with the standard input or the direct labor hours required in manufacturing that product. And then if it is a cost, if the problem is asking for the total cost, then you should multiply by the direct labor price per product or per unit. And then if it's not the cost, then that units produced multiplied by the direct labor hour required in producing one unit. So a firm has projected sales of 20,000 and 22,000 units for the next two periods 1 and 2 respectively. The firm maintains an ending finished goods inventory equal to 15% of the next period's projected sales. So each unit requires 2 hours of direct labor at a cost of $15 per hour. So how much is the direct labor budget for period 1? So again, we should start with the number of units sold, 20,000, plus the desired ending inventory or the desired number of units to be maintained at the end of the period. So 22,000 times 15%, and then the beginning inventory, which is 20,000 times 15%. So that's the number of units produced, multiplied by the standard input or the standard direct labor hour, which is 2 hours per unit, then multiplied by 15. So what's the answer after adopting those figures that I have mentioned? So let's see the calculation. So the correct answer is 609,000. 609,000. The correct answer is letter C. Yung formula naman natin, dyan lang umiikot pa sa number of units sold, then less add beginning inventory, less ending inventory. This one. For the month of September, Tyler plans to manufacture 260,000 units. What will be Tyler's total budgeted production cost for September? So production cost, meaning to say, it includes the materials, it includes all the overhead costs plus the direct labor and then the direct materials. Everything, since it is production cost. But let's see in the problem what it says. Tyler Company produces one product and budgeted 220,000 units for the month of August with the following budgeted manufacturing cost. So these are the manufacturing costs. The variable cost, 1,408 million. Cost per unit is 640. The batch setup cost, 880,000. Cost per unit is 4. And then fixed cost, 1,210,000 at 5.50. The variable cost per unit and the total fixed costs are unchanged within production range of 200,000 to 300,000 units per month. If you still remember, guys, this production range, 200,000 to 300,000 units, this is what we call the relevant range. Within that relevant range, the ceteris paribus applies, or where the fixed cost or the total fixed cost remains the same, but its fixed cost per unit remain variable, while the impact for the variable cost, total variable cost, is variable, but the variable cost per unit is constant or fixed. The total for the batch setup cost in any month depends on the number of production batches that Tyler runs. A normal batch consists of 50,000 units unless production requires less volume. In the prior year, Tyler experienced mixed monthly batch sizes of 42, 45, and 50,000. So when we're going to use the batch setup cost, di ba mapapansin nyo sa manufacturing cost, the total cost per batch setup cost is 880,000. Considering the impact and within the relevant range, the activity that we would use for the batch setup cost is the normal capacity, which is the 50,000. The normal capacity, 50,000. So for each batch, we should know how much will be the cost for it. Then Tyler consistently plans production each month in order to minimize the number of batches. For the month of September, Tyler plans to manufacture 260,000 units. So question guys, is this 260,000 units within the relevant range? The correct answer is yes, because from 200 to 300,000, so 260,000 is within that range. So meaning to say that the variable cost should be 6.40, and then the fixed cost still the same, 1,210,000. The only problem now, or the calculation that that quite challenging for us, is the batch setup cost. Kasi from 220, it will become 260,000. So first, we just need, i-jet na natin yung variable cost, 6.40 multiplied by 260,000 units. And then the fixed cost, 1,210,000. So how we should know what will be the batch setup cost? So before, di ba, sinabi ko sa inyo, gagamitin natin yung normal capacity or the normal batch, which is 50,000. So for every batch of 50,000, ilang batch ang magagawa ni Tyler Company to produce 220,000 units? So there were 5 batches. Right? Kasi kung 50, 50, 50, so 4 batch, 200 pa lang. So since batch yung processing, so that company should produce in batch for for how many, for that 880,000 or for the 220,000 units. So 880,000 divided by 5 so that we could get the cost per batch. And then recently, Tyler plans to manufacture 260,000 units. So 260,000 units, how many batches of 50,000? It should be 6. Kasi 50 times 5 is 250, and then may sobra pa na 10,000. You cannot produce 10,000 units only, so it should be included on the 6th batch. Kasi 50, 50, 50, 50, 50 to make it 300. So meaning to say, the batch setup cost would be 880,000 divided by 5 times 6th batch. So, the correct answer for number 18 is 3,930,000, which is letter B. The fixed cost 1.210, variable cost 260, 1664, and the batch setup cost 880,000 divided by 5 multiplied by 6. 3,930,000. Okay, let's proceed with the next one. In the next accounting period, if production and sales are expected to be 40,000 units, the company should anticipate a per unit contribution margin of. I think we haven't discussed a contribution margin and how we could get that contribution margin in section B, but I believe that we already discussed this in section C, wherein contribution margin arrives from deducting all the variable expenses from sales. So how much would be the contribution margin per unit? So the following information relates to Clyde Corporation, which produced and sold 50,000 units during a recent accounting period. Sales 850, manufacturing cost fixed 210, variable 140, the selling and admin cost fixed 300, variable 45. So 850 less 140 less 45, then you should divide it by 50,000 units. Then you could get the contribution margin per unit. Simple lang naman i-remember yung formula ng contribution margin. Even the problem doesn't state or ask kind of contribution margin. Pag contribution margin, automatic sales less all variable expenses. But if it's manufacturing contribution margin, the only variable cost that you should deduct from sales are the variable manufacturing cost. The variable selling and admin costs will be excluded. So the correct answer is letter D, $13.30. So here's the computation or the calculation. Don't worry guys, the PowerPoint presentation with the answers will be given to you by Sir Marlon once the topics are done for today. So that you could have your guide or reference to review all the MCQs that we have discussed or the other MCQs that we will be discussing for today. Next, okay, I think this is the last one for the budgeting, and then we will proceed with the final topic, which is the forecasting technique. Okay, the dollar production budget for animated rabbits for February is, so let's see yung scenario naman dito sa production budget ni animated rabbits ni Daffy Toons. Okay, let's read. Daffy Toons manufactures an rabbit with moving parts and a built-in voice box. Projected sales in units are, so from January to May, all the projected sales are clearly stated or indicated. Then each rabbit requires basic materials that Daffy purchases from a single supplier at $3.50 per rabbit. Then voice boxes are purchased from another supplier at $1 each. Then assembly labor cost is $2 per rabbit and variable overhead cost is $0.50 per rabbit. Fixed manufacturing overhead applicable to rabbit production is $12,000 per month. So we just need to add all the cost for materials and then the labor and then the overhead, both for variable overhead and the fixed overhead, since production budget yung ina-ask sa problem. So the only thing that we need to know is what will be our basis or what will be the base. Then it says here, Daffy's policy is to manufacture 1.5 times the coming month's projected sales every other month starting with January or odd number months, and for February sales, and to manufacture 0.5 times the coming month's projected sales in alternate months. So, diba guys, please underline that is to manufacture. So, is to manufacture same as to produce. So, it will be easier for us to determine what will be the base since it's already stated manufacture or produce. So, since it's for the month of February, the basis would be 0.5 of the next month's sales. So, from February, so March. So, how much will be the sales or the number of items to be sold for March? It's 33,000 but only 0.5. So 33,000 times 50%, then multiplied by the 3.5 plus 1 plus 2 plus 0.5. Then we should add 12,000 the fixed overhead. Then we could come up with the production budget for animated rabbits for the month of February. Okay, so the correct answer for this number is letter 127, 200, 1500 is letter C. Produce units, 33,000 times 0.5, 16 and a half. The cost per unit, the direct materials, the labor, and then the variable overhead, $7. Then multiplied by 16 and a half plus 12,000 fixed overhead. So we could come up with the total production cost, 127,500. So okay, I think we've done with the budgeting methods and terminologies. So we should go ahead with the last topic, which is forecasting technique. This is one of the easiest topics in section B. because we have only three methods or three quantitative techniques that we should learn, and we should know how to calculate. And then so once we know that, then it's very easy for us to answer or to ace all the questions that will be coming from this topic. Okay, forecasting methods. Forecasts are the basis for business plans and budgets. So we have two kinds of forecasting methods, which could be qualitative methods and quantitative methods. The qualitative methods are based solely from the manager's experience and intuition, based on the different experiences or scenarios that the managers or the person in charge in doing the forecasting have been undertaken. But for the quantitative techniques, since quantitative, it involves numbers or different graphs or charts, so that it will be easier for the managers or for the persons involved in doing the forecast to deliver an accurate figures that will be presented to the board for the approval of the forecasting or of the budgets or any kind of sales or even the total costs and expenses for the company. So normally, when we're using the quantitative technique, there's always an intervention of the graph. So once there's a graph, we are always familiar with an x and the y axis, where in the y or the horizontal or the vertical axis, and then the x, the horizontal axis, where in the y is the dependent variable because it derives its value from the independent variable or from its driver, which is the x-axis. So when there's a causal relationship forecasting, and it should be plotted in the x-axis, and it's called as the causal relation forecasting when the two variables have a direct relationship with each other. And when in the x-axis is plotted using the time series or the time or even months, years, it's called as time series analysis. So what is correlation analysis? So correlation analysis is the foundation of any quantitative method of forecasting. So in short explanation, correlation is determining how the two variables are relatable to each other, or how strong these two variables have an impact with each other. This is the strength of the linear relationship between the two variables, which is quite expressly mathematically in terms of the coefficient of correlation, or R. It can be graphically depicted by plotting the values for the variables in a graph in the form of a scatter diagram. Later on, we could know that what that scatter diagram is, and then we could know as well the kind of relationship that the two variables exhibited. So there are different relationship, or there are four classifications of the relationship once these two variables plotted. There's a perfect direct relationship, the perfect indirect relationship, the strong direct relationship, and then the no linear relationship. And then the coefficient of determination, or the R squared, or the coefficient of correlation squared, is a measure of how good the fit between the two variables are. So coefficient of determination is you just need to multiply twice the coefficient of correlation. Kasi normally yung correlation or yung coefficient of correlation is attributed as 0.70, 0.80, 0.90. And then if you multiply that, then it will be converted into percentage. For example, the relationship is 0.7, or the coefficient of correlation is 0.7. Then if you multiply that twice, 0.7 times 0.7, it should be 0.49 or 49%. So meaning to say that there's a relationship between the two variables, but it's less than the 50% requirement to establish a perfect direct relationship. But at the end, there's still a relationship between the two variables that you have chosen. There's still some the correlation still exists. So this one is an example of the perfect direct relationship. So this is kind of the scatter diagram, wherein we are going to plot that y and then the x-axis. So, kapag perfect direct relationship, it is always equal to 1. So, meaning to say that there's a very, what do you call that? An excellent perfect relationship, itong perfect direct relationship. Since once you already have chosen the type of driver that will have an impact in your forecast, and then if you will be plotted that in the diagram or on this kind on the scatter diagram, and then you will plot all that points, it will establish a direct line upward. So that's why there's a perfect direct relationship. For an example, if you want to determine your sales for a given month or for a particular month, so what are the factors or what are the drivers that will increase your sales? For an example, you should spend more in marketing activities or ads. And then if that ads or marketing strategy that you have as a direct relationship with your sales, then it should have a perfect direct relationship. So, opposite naman ng perfect direct relationship, the perfect inverse relationship. So, ito yung opposite ng perfect direct relationship, but still perfect relationship. Kaso nga, the con nga lang is inverse. So, or the coefficient of correlation nito is -1, where in perfect direct relationship, the coefficient of correlation is 1. The third classification is the strong direct relationship. So, for example, dito, yung coefficient correlation is 0.7. Kung mapapansin nyo, yung mga points or yung mga dotted points inside the scatter diagram or in the on this figure, on this illustration, hiwa-hiwalay yung mga points. But still, you can see that if you plot the dots with a straight line, you could still point or you could still determine that between the two variables, meron pa rin relationship na nag-e-exist. Kaso nga lang hindi siya perfect direct or perfect inverse. And then the last one is the no linear relationship. Yung sobrang hiwa-hiwalay ng points and there is no instances na makakapag-plot ka ng points. Meaning to say that all the drivers that you have chosen, wala siyang impact dun sa y or dun sa dependent variable. Or meaning to say maybe it's outside the range na ginamit mo when you're doing the forecast, or maybe when you're making the forecast is already outdated or meron ka mga assumptions na na-consider na hindi naman dapat. That's why there's no linear relationship between those two variables. Okay, so one of the quantitative techniques that we should remember is the regression analysis. So, yung formula yung tatanda natin dito sa regression analysis. Regression analysis, let's see how it is being defined. Regression analysis, also called the least squares analysis, is the process of deriving the linear equation that describes the relationship between two variables with a non-zero coefficient of correlation. So, regression analysis involvement of two variables, which is the x and the y, provided that there is no zero or it should have non-zero coefficient. So, there are two types of regression: the simple regression and the multiple regression. Sometimes it's being asked in multiple choice questions the difference between the simple regression and the multiple regression. The simple regression analysis, it only has one independent variable, while the multiple regression has two or more independent variables. So yun, you should know the difference between the two. For in simple regression, can be stated in a simple equation as y is equals to a plus bx. I think all of us are very familiar regarding with this formula. Then we should know what is y, what is a, and then what is b, and then the x. So y is the dependent variable. Why we say that it's dependent variable? Because its derived cost or its cost or price is depending on the two variables from A and then the Bx. And then the A, the y-intercept, and then B, the slope of the regression line or the slope of the line, and then the X, the independent variable. So you should take note on this as well, guys. And y equals to A plus Bx, and you should know what y stands for, A stands for, B stands for, and then X stands for. In a simple equation or in a simple budgeting techniques or budgeted cost that we are doing, we could say that y is equals to A plus Bx, where A is just like the fixed cost, and then the Bx, the B is the variable cost per unit, and then the X is the driver or the activity or the number of labor hours, number of pound shipped, number of units produced. Yeah. And then the multiple regression is used when there is more than one independent variable. So what are the assumptions of the linear regression model or for the regression analysis? So the linear relationship studies for X and Y is only valid across the relevant range. So again, yung relevant range, we already have discussed this. So since it is also one of the generic assumptions for the linear regression. So meaning to say that once the variables that we have chosen are outside the relevant range, so regression analysis cannot be used. Kasi sabi niya, dapat valid lang across the relevant range. And then the user must identify the relevant range and ensure that he or she does not project the relationship beyond it. So always say it should be within that relevant range. For example, if from within 200 to 300, so that linear regression, the linear regression analysis is feasible. But if it's more than 300,000, regression model will not be good in doing the forecasting. And then a negative y-intercept in the simple regression equation usually indicates that it's outside the relevant range. So negative y-intercept, di ba guys, na mention kanina, that says na sa regression analysis should have non-zero coefficient of correlation. So it's always the same, that like negative y-intercept. So since if it is negative y-intercept, then it will be out of the range already, and then it will invalidate all your assumptions. Then regression analysis assumes that past relationships can be validly projected into the future. So meaning to say that regression analysis, one of its bases are the historical figures or historical data, that the past events could happen still in the future. And then the distribution of y around the regression line is constant for different values of x, referred to as homoscedasticity or the constant variance, which is, I think this is the steady paribus assumption, or that all things must remain equal. Thus, a limitation of the regression method is that can only be used with cost patterns remain unchanged from prior periods. So still fall with that relevant range. We're in that fixed cost, and then the fixed cost, the total fixed cost, fixed in total, cost per unit is variable, and then for variable cost, total variable cost is variable, wherein the variable cost per unit is fixed. So what are the benefits of regression analysis? So it is numerical and quantitative. This makes conclusion easier to draw. So I think we are very for us, accountants and finance professionals, we could easily conclude or make conclusions in making our decisions once we could see the figures or true graphs, or if it will be provided by different figures or data. So much better for us to conclude a good decision that will be helpful in making sound financial decisions for the company. Because di ba pag nakita natin yung figures or yung numerical data, then we could easily point on how we could address the issue, or how could we improve more, or how could we do better things for the company or for these figures. And then they be used to forecast that the fixed and variable portions of cost that contain both fixed and variable components. Thus, it can be used in budgeting. In a way, it can also be a motivating target tool
for every individuals or for the managers who are under their control for their certain departments, so that they could know how much will be the cost that will be considered once they will be assessing or evaluating by the company and getting an incentives or bonuses, because they should be judged or verdict only based on the cost that they have an influence, not on those costs that are fixed or it could be attributed to that department, but it's already been fixed and it cannot be eliminated. So yun, that's why it's a good tool for evaluation. So what are the limitations of regression analysis? I think we discussed some of the limitations of the regression analysis in the previous slides, but we could check it again here. Historical data is required. If there's no data, regression analysis cannot be used. So yeah, one of the cons. If there have been changes in the environment or situations since the data was collected, it will not work. So, meaning to say that the regression analysis is not hindi siya sobrang flexible, since once you already have collected data and then there will be some changes on that after you have collected the data, then your forecast will not be accurate, or it will not be good in making some decisions in the future. If the independent variable chosen is not appropriate, there is low correlation between the independent variable and the dependent variable. The resulting forecast may be invalid. And then the conclusions are valid only for the range covered, which is nga yung relevant range. So that's it for the regression analysis for the one of the QUATEX or quantitative techniques. So let's proceed with the second quantitative technique, which is the learning curve. So learning curve reflects the increased rate at which people perform tasks as they gain experience. Thus, the time required to perform a given task becomes progressively shorter. Ordinarily, the learning curve is expressed as a percentage of reduced time to complete a task for each doubling of cumulative production. Ito guys, learning curve lang naman, normally it is being applied for labor-intensive works. Meaning to say that you are producing more products considering lesser time. Kasi as you gain experience, as you gain more experience, then you should produce more products using lesser time requirement. Since you already familiarized on how to produce that product, for an example, you will be producing one product for 2 hours. It's the first time you should create that product. Then after several experiences or after several years of working on that particular product, you already gain the knowledge or the shortcuts or some things that you already deployed on how to enhance the procedures in making that product. Then maybe by next time you will produce more products by minimum time or lesser time requirement. For example, before you're producing one for 2 hours, and then on the next 2 units that you will be producing, you will require only 3 hours rather than, kasi kung by 2 units, so 3 units, so 2, 3, 6 should be 6, but you will make now 4 hours. So there's 1 hour lesser if you will be producing that for 6 hours. And then may rule lang tayo dito sa learning curve that for every doubling of production. Yon. Kasi sa mga lot requirements or the number of units to be produced, it should always be doubled. For example, if one product, if the first product is 1 and then the next unit will be 2, and the next 2 units, so since 2 will be doubled, it will be 4, and then 4 it will be 8, and then the next unit or the next batch will be 16. Yung palagi siya 1, 2, 4, 8, 16 or 100, 200, 400, 800. Idodouble nyo pa lang palagi yung the previous number of units or the previous batch. And then we will multiply that with the learning curve percentage. You will appreciate this learning curve once you apply this in the problems in the succeeding slides. It is a quantitative technique used to project the direct labor cost for full-scale production of a product from the initial run of the project. And this is also appropriate when submitting a bid for a product for which the firm already has experience. The experience should lead to shorter production time and lower cost. Guys, please underline that submitting a bid for a product. Normally, or most of the times you will encounter this in the MCQ. Once you already know that submitting a bid or something na may mapapansin kayo na bid sa multiple choice question, then you have an idea that it will pertain to learning curve, most especially if during the bid you could provide lesser cost, then there's a possibility that you will be the one to be chosen. Kasi ang learning curve will be is applicable once you will have some bids, for example, for some construction or for making some products or voluminous products. And then what are the benefits of the learning curve? So let's read what have been mentioned in this slide. Make or buy decisions, analysis of the cost to make. So when it comes to make or buy decisions, it's up to us if it will be through in-house or in-sourcing or outsourcing. But after the careful analysis, which one is better to produce the product internally or better to outsource the products? Whichever will have a good bottom line figure, then that will be the one to choose. That one will be the one to choose. But sometimes there are some other factors and considerations that each company should apply or should consider. Even though outsourcing coming from outside is quite cheaper, pero minsan they still choose to do it in-house, considering the impact with the other departments na they depend on sa magpuproduce, or somehow they just wanted to ensure the quality of the product because they already know that particular department or the production department that they are have the necessary skills, or the quality that they're producing or the quality of the products that they are producing will not be compromised. And then in calculating the cost of a contract over its life, learning curve analysis can lead to a better bidding. And then in determining a break-even point, if learning is not considered, the result may be overstatement of the number of units required to break even. Diba? If there's a learning curve, and then if there's a learning curve, then the impact with our direct labor cost will be lesser or will be minimized. If this if this learning curve will not be considered, then your direct labor will go up and then it has an impact with the contribution margin or the break even to have a higher number of units. Then standard costs can be adjusted regularly to recognize the fact that learning causes labor cost decrease. So if you will be encountering the problem regarding with the learning curve, there is a question that in the labor, does it need to consider the learning curve percentage or the learning curve rate in making a standard, in doing the standard price? The correct answer is yes. But take note, guys, that the learning curve should only apply to direct labor or to labor-intensive works, not to direct materials. Then in capital budgeting, labor costs can be projected more accurately over the life of the capital investment. Production and labor budgets can be adjusted to accommodate the learning curves and more effective evaluation of managers. Maybe at least from the benefits of the learning curves, maybe you could just memorize at least 3. Kasi baka mapasama rin sa essay nyo, sa essay, what are the benefits of learning curve. And then some of the limitations of the learning curves, it's only applicable in a situation in which experience leads to improvement labor-intensive tasks. We assume that the learning curve rate is constant when reality is probably is not, and then we assume that an increase in productivity are due to the learning process when there may be factors causing to a productivity to English. For an example, if there are some other factors like equipment that have been purchased for that particular department or for the production department, so it would lead to have more products to be produced considering the efficiency and effectivity of the new machinery. So yun as one of the factors na i-consider kung bakit mas mataas yung production or mas mabilis yung naging production for that number of units. Kasi nowadays naman, everything is powered by the equipment or by technology. It's not all with the manual laborers. And then the last quantitative technique is the expected value. So expected value is a means of associating a dollar amount with each of the possible outcomes of a probability distribution. The outcome yielding the highest expected monetary value, which may not be most likely one, is the optimal alternative. And there are three things considered: the decision alternative, which is the manager's control; the state of nature, the future event whose outcome the manager attempting to predict; and then the payoff, the financial result, the combination of the manager's decision of the actual state of nature. So guys, sa expected value, the only thing that we need to understand here is when we'll be choosing a project or in the problem, we should always select yung alternative that has the highest impact in the revenue, or when it comes to the cost, the least one. Yun, kasi associate lang naman natin yung yung percentage or yung probability doon against the payoff. And then kapag once revenue, kung ano yung pinakamataas, yung pipili natin, and then kapag sa cost, yung pinakamababa, yun naman yung ating pipiliin. So I think I have a lot of examples in the previous slide, in the next slides, and then you will appreciate it more. And then the expected value of an event is calculated by multiplying the probability of each outcome by its payoff and summing the products. So I think this is the last topic for section B, and then we will now proceed with a lot of multiple choice questions again pertaining to forecasting techniques. And then after forecasting techniques, we will review again what we have discussed last week through another batch of multiple choice questions. It's also in the slides. So let's go ahead. So guys, again, please participate. First question. The quantitative technique used to capture this phenomenon and estimate the direct labor hours required for the special order is. So a manufacturing firm plans to bid on a special order of 80 units that will be manufactured in lots of 10 units each. The production manager estimates that the direct labor hours per unit will decline by a constant percentage each time the cumulative quantity of units produced doubles. So which kind of quantitative technique is this? So diba earlier, I already informed you to underline the bids and also that constant percentage, and then at doubles. So ano yung quantitative technique na yun? I think we have only 3 quantitative techniques we've discussed. First is the regression analysis, second is the learning curve, and the third one is the expected value. So among those 3, alin yung ini-specify or sinasabi ng problem number 1? Is it the numerical process, called CPV, the learning curve, or the linear programming analysis? Yes, the correct answer is letter C, learning curve analysis. Ayan, underline yan, decline by constant percentage, units produced, doubles, and then that special order or to be the special order. So yun yung mga keywords kapag learning curve analysis. Next. A particular okay, what is the cumulative average time per unit after 8 units are completed? So it's something to do with learning curve. So a particular manufacturing job is subject to an estimated 80% learning curve. So this 80% the learning curve rate. And then the first unit required 50 labor hours to complete. So 1 unit is equals to 50 labor hours. Then what would be the cumulative average time per unit after 8 units are completed? Okay. So first unit, 1 unit, and then 50. So the first 2 units, then considering the labor rate, the learning curve. So for the second batch or the second unit, so 80 times 0.80 or 80% times 50. And then fourth is 50 times 0.8 is 40 times 0.8, then times 0.8. Ito yung illustration niya guys on how you will compute this. Kasi pwede nyo siyang i-direct since the 8 unit. Kung 8 unit yan, the first unit is equals to 1. And then it will be doubled. 1, 2, 4, 8. So until that 8. And then that 50, we will just multiply by 80% 3 times. So 50 times 0.8 times 0.8 times 0.8. So ito yung long cut niya. Yung long cut calculation. Pansin nyo, yung cumulative units produced, diba, first, 2, and then 4, 8. It's always, once the units are to be produced, should be cumulative. It should always double yung sa first column. Kaya yan, 1, 2, 4, 8. Hindi siya pwedeng 1, 2, 5 something. It should always be doubled. If it is 1, then it should be, the next will be 2, next will be 4, next will be 8. It is 100, 200, 400, 800. It's 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, 8,000. And then the cumulative average time per unit, it's 50 for the first unit because there's no intervention or there's no application of the learning curve rate. So once there's an application of the labor rate or the learning curve, so 50 times 0.8, which is 40 times 0.8, 32 times 0.8 is 25.60. This 25.60 is the average time for the 8 units. Average time lang ha, for 8 unit per unit. But if the question being asked is how many hours required in producing 8 units, so 25.60 times 8. Kung yun yung question. And then if there's an additional question that how many hours required for the additional 6 units. For additional 7 units rather. Kasi di ba ito, 1 to 8. And then, kung additional 7, so 8 less 1. So, 25.6 times 8, and then less 50. So, that's the average, that's the time required producing the additional 7 units. Okay, let's see the next problem. The quantitative method that would best estimate the entity's total cost for the project is: an entity is preparing a bid for a special project requiring the production of 35,000 units. The engineering personnel have advised that the units can be produced in groups with the first group consisting of 1,000 units. A review of prior experience indicates the direct labor time needed per unit will be progressively smaller by a constant percentage rate as experience is gained in the production process. So, which quantitative method is being asked in the problem? Is it time series, learning curve, dynamic, or the linear? Yes, you're right. It's a learning curve analysis. It's letter B. Okay, let's solve this together. If proper propeller produces 8 units, the total manufacturing cost will be the total manufacturing cost for the 8 units. Proper propeller incorporated plans to manufacture a newly designed high-technology propeller for airplanes. Proper propeller forecasts that as workers gains experience, they will need less time to complete the job. Based on prior experience, they will need less time to complete the job. Based on prior experience, proper propeller estimates a 70% cumulative learning curve and has projected the following cost. So cumulative number of units produced, 1, average cost per unit is 20, and then the total cost would be 20,000. And then for 2, 14,000 average cost per unit, and then 28,000 yung total cost. So how did we get that 14,000 average cost per unit? We multiplied that learning curve rate 70% by 20,000. So or 20,000 times 70%, it's 14,000 average cost per unit. And then how did we get the 28,000 in the total cost? 14,000 times 2. So we just need to continue so that you could know or you could determine how much will be the total manufacturing cost for 8 units. So like you just need to continue like 1, 2, 4, 8. And then that 14,000 times 70% times 70%. And once you know the average cost per unit, once you have that on the 8 cumulative units produced, then multiplied by the average cost per unit that level, then you will determine how much will be the total manufacturing cost. Okay guys, what's your answer there? Here. Yes, the correct answer is 54,880. I think sanayin nyo na guys ang pag-compute ng learning curve. Even though there's no yung dito mga header like cumulative units produced, but once you already know how to calculate that, then i-drag nyo lang sa calculator so that you could have enough or maybe you could answer the question in with minimal time requirement. Or else kapag to be sure, kung mabilis naman din kayo magsulat, so ganito na yung gawin nyo, like kahit gina-exam yung header as 1, 2, 4, 8, and then the digits. Okay, next. Okay, I think it's the same problem with number 4. May additional, iba lang yung question dito. After completing production of the first propeller, the estimated cost for proper propeller to fill an order for 7 additional propellers. Diba kanina, total cost for the 8 propellers. Ang question naman dito is 7 additional propellers. So how much will that be? How much is the cost for the additional 7 propellers? You should just continue your solution in number 4. May babawas lang kayo doon sa from 54,880. Then you could determine how much will be the total cost for the 7 propellers. Yeah, that's right. The correct answer is 34,880. Ano na yun, guys? Di ba na-compute natin earlier for the units produced or for the 8 units produced, total cost is 54,880. Meaning to say, or the question being asked is how much the total cost for the 7 propellers, for the 7 additional propellers. Since 8 is 54,880 and the cost for 1 unit is 20,000, so we just need to deduct 20,000 from 54,880, then we could get that 7 units propeller, the cost for the 7 propellers. Kung ang question naman, guys, is ganito, how much is the total cost between 4 to 6 unit? Yun yung question. So, dito lang din natin yung 54,880 less 39,200. Yung total cost ng 5, 6, 7, and 8 unit. But yung question naman is, how much will be the cost per unit between this, yung 4 to 6 na to, 4 to 8. So, 54,880 less 39,200, then divided by 4. And you could get the cost per unit between 4 to 8 units produced. So, from this illustration, you could easily check yung mga possible questions that might be asked in learning curve. Kasi dyan lang naman iikot yung sa learning curve na question. How much will be the cumulative average, or how much will be the cumulative total cost, or how much will be the cost, or how much will be the total, the additional cost for certain units produced, or dun sa mga sa mga gaps mentioned to you earlier, yung sa between 4 to 8, and or maybe it could also be between 2 to 4. Yun yung mga gaps na dyan lang sila pwedeng mag-raise ng question when it comes sa learning curve. So if you know this kind of illustration or this way of presentation, then you could easily answer the possible questions that might be asked from learning curve. So yan. Kaya ganito yung way ng presentation that I presented, so that you could easily understand. Okay, let's proceed to the next question. So, which employee will receive the bonus? A new manufacturer in the production of airplane propellers has to train its employees in the process of making propellers. To increase the speed of learning, the manufacturer will give a bonus to the employee with the lowest cumulative average time per unit after 8 units are completed. L took 50 hours to complete the first unit, and she is subject to an 80% learning curve. So si L, 80% learning curve and 50 hours. Then S took 60 hours to complete the first unit, and she is subject to a 70% learning curve. Then M took 40 hours to complete the first unit, and she is subject to a 20% learning curve. Then P took 55 hours to complete the first unit, and she is subject to a 75% learning curve. So who do you think, guys, is entitled for the bonus? For 8 units. So kay L gawin natin is 50 times 0.8 times 0.8 times 0.8. And then kay S, 60 times 0.7 times 0.7 times 0.7. M, 40 times 0.9 times 0.9 times 0.9. Then P, 55 times 0.75 times 0.75 times 0.75. Okay, sino yung may sino yung may lesser time to complete that 8 units? Is it L, M, P, or S? Okay, the correct answer is, I think, letter S here. Let's see the answer. S. So L 25.60, S 20.58, M 29.16, then T 23.80. Guys, did you get the same cumulative average time after 8 units for each employees? Did you get the same figures? Okay, great. Okay. The first two lets of this product is. So dito, the question that is asked is the learning curve rate. And na to. A manufacturing company has the opportunity to submit a bid for 20 units of a product on which it has already produced 2 10-unit lots. The production manager believes that the learning experience observed on the first 2 lots will continue for at least the next 2 lots. The direct labor required in the first 2 lots was as follows: 5,000 direct labor hours for the first lot of 10 units, and then 3,000 additional direct labor hours for the second lot of 10 units. So, what will be the learning curve rate or the learning curve percentage? Isandaan nyo ha. Remember yung or take note dun sa 3,000 additional direct labor hours. Additional lang yun. Additional. What's the percentage here? Is it 40%, 60%, 80%, or 62.5%? The correct answer here is letter B, 60, it's letter C, 80%. Kasi ang ginagawa dito ng iba is 3 over 5. I think if it is 3 over 5, it will be 60%. But it's not right since it is additional. The correct answer is letter C, 80%. We could have that 5,000, 3,000, so it will be 8,000 labor hours for the 20 units. So we could conclude that between that, 8,000 divided by 10, 8,000 divided by 20, since 20 units na nga, close to 4,000. So we could 4,000 divided by 5,000, it's 80%. Or this is the additional, another computation. For the cumulative units produced, 10 cumulative total hours per lot is 5,000. And the cumulative average hours per unit is 500, since 5,000 divided by 10, 500. And then for the second batch, or for the cumulative units produced 20, then total hours per lot, 8,000. So 8,000 divided by 20, it's 400. So I think nagkabaliktad lang dito yung dividend and divisor. So it should be 400 over 500. It's 80%. Next. Upon completion of the 8th unit, AeroSub's cumulative average direct labor hours required per unit of the product will be. Upon completion of the 8th unit, what will be the average direct labor hours per unit? Madali lang to. AeroSub Incorporated has developed a new product for spacecraft that includes the production of a complex part. The manufacture of this part requires a high degree of technical skill. Management believes there is a good opportunity for its technical force to learn and improve as they become accustomed to the production process. The production of the first unit requires 10,000 direct labor hours. management projects an 80% learning curve and wants to produce a total of 8 units. So, what's the average direct labor hour? Yes, that's right. It's letter C, 5,120. Kasi 10,000 times 0.8 times 0.8 times 0.8. Which one of the following statements best demonstrates the concept of learning curve? Is it A? A learning curve is a linear cost behavior influenced by learning. Or B, a learning curve is a percentage by which average time per unit produced decreases as output doubles. Or learning curve is a percentage by which average time falls as output increases by 1. Or learning curve is a judgmental method of estimating cost when learning is present. Which is the correct one here? Or the best info that will define what learning curve is. A, B, or C, or D? Correct answer is letter B, by which average time per unit produced decreases as output doubles. How many direct labor hours will be required to manufacture the next 12 units? A manufacturing company required 800 direct labor hours to produce the first lot of 4 units of a new motor. Management believes that a 90% learning curve will be experienced over 4 lots of production. So how many direct labor hours will be required to manufacture the next 12 units? Okay, here's the calculation here. Cumulative units produced, diba, 4, 8, 16, or maybe we could just round it up by 1, 2, 4. I think it would be the same as well. The cumulative average hours per lot is 800, then there's 90% learning curve rate, 720, and then 648. So if it is 800, ang first unit or for the first 4 units, and the total of the second lot, and then the third lot or the fourth lot is 2,592. Since the question is asked is how many hours for the additional 12 units. So 2,592 less 800, so we could have 1,792. Okay. Next. Which one of the following is a quantitative analysis method the company can use to measure the average change in the manufacturing cost associated with the change in cost driver? Quantitative analysis method company can use to measure the average change in manufacturing cost associated with the change in a cost driver. So, aling analysis or quantitative method yung na-discuss natin na mayroong mga drivers or cost drivers. Yes, that's right. The correct answer is letter B, regression analysis. Next, if the accountant is projecting that X will be 5,000 hours next year, how much should be the accountant project for next year's maintenance expenditures? An accountant for a biotechnology company is working on a projection of next year's maintenance expenditures for the company's laboratory equipment used in research and development. By analyzing past maintenance expenditures, the accountant was able to determine that future maintenance expenditures can be expressed by the following simple regression equation. So 20 plus 50x. And then variable x is the number of hours laboratory equipment has been in the service. So for next year, and the basis will be 5,000 hours next year. So how much will it be? I-substitute lang natin yon so that we could get that y. Well, we could get the total maintenance expenditures, the projected maintenance expenditures. Okay, so 50,000 times 5,000 is equals to 250 plus 20 is 270. 270. 20,000 plus 50,000 times 5,000. Okay, substitute lang natin yung 5,000 dito sa x. So 5,000 times 50 plus 20,000. It's 270,000. Letter C. Kasi we're projecting next year's maintenance expenditures. That's why we use this 5,000 hours. But if it is, the question is how much will be the projected maintenance expenditure for last year, then we should incorporate that 4,500 times 50 plus 20,000. Okay. For cost estimation, simple regression differs from multiple regression in that simple regression uses only A, one dependent variable, while multiple regression uses all available data to estimate the cost function. Or B, one dependent variable, while multiple regression uses more than one dependent variable, or one independent variable, while multiple regression uses more than one independent variable, or dependent variables, while multiple regression can use both dependent and independent variables. So what's the difference between simple regression and multiple regression? Yes, that's correct. It's letter C. One independent variable for the simple regression, while the multiple regression uses more than one independent variable. Independent variables are not dependent variable. Okay. The best method to use to predict next year's sales is a nationwide retail mattress firm will begin selling high-end crib mattresses next year. Management believes sales for this product will be driven primarily by birth rates, but will be influenced to a lesser extent by income levels. So among these four choices, which is the best one? Kasi two drivers na dito, two independent variables, the birth rates and then the income level. Yes, that's right. It's multiple regression. Letter B. Okay, this. The letter X in the standard regression equation is best described as there's a y is equals to a plus bx. Y is equals to dependent variable, y a is equals to y-intercept, then b is the slope of a line, and then x is d. Yes, it's letter C, the independent variable. This one. if the company has forecasted sales of 189,000 for the next quarter, what amount is it planning to spend on marketing activities in the next quarter? The total forecasted sales is 189,000. An electronics company has developed a regression model to forecast quarterly sales. The model explains the relationship between the company's sales and the amount it spends on marketing activities. The regression equation for the model is expressed below. S3M plus 150,000, where S the sales per quarter and then M the dollars spent on marketing activities per quarter. So how much will be the marketing activities? So it's a matter of substitution lang natin. So i-substitute lang natin 189,000 doon sa formula or doon sa regression equation mentioned in the problem. So the correct answer is letter B, $13,000. Just the calculation. Wala calculation. Ito lang yan. Di ba ang S is the sales per quarter, so we just need to substitute that 189,000. So 189,000 less 150,000 is 39,000. Then 39,000 divided by 3, 13,000. So that's the marketing activities. Letter B. Okay, this one. When the value of X is 10, the estimated value of Y is. When the value of X is 10, the estimated value of Y is. The results of regressing Y against X are as follows. The coefficient of intercept is 5.23 and the coefficient of slope is 1.54. Okay, substitute lang natin dun sa the equation ng simple regression, y is equals to a plus bx. So another term for y, another term for a, then another term for b. Y is the intercept, and then b is the slope. Then substitute. So 5.23 plus 1.54 multiplied by 10. So the correct answer is letter D, 20.63. Next. The quantitative technique that should be used to determine whether any of these independent variables might provide a good estimate for shipping cost. A company has accumulated data for the last 24 months in order to determine if there is an independent variable that could be used to estimate shipping cost. There are 3 possible independent variables being considered: the packages shipped, the mileage shipped, and then the pounds shipped. So what are those 3 independent variables? So which type of regression is this? You may more than 1 independent variables. So hindi lang pala sa kinaklas which kind of regression analysis, if it's simple or multiple regression. So the correct answer for number 18 is letter B, the linear regression. (18) is letter B. Okay, 19. Let's see. On the basis of this information, which of the following statements is correct? So this is an application of the third quantitative technique, which is the expected value. Diba sa expected value, we're just summing up yung product ng sum ng payoff at saka ng probability. Yeah. According to recent focus sessions, a corporation has a can't miss consumer product on its hands. Sales forecasts indicate either excellent or good results, with the sales manager assigning probability of 0.60 to good results outcome. The company is now studying various sales compensation tests for the product and is determining the following contribution margin data. If sales are excellent, then plan 1 is adopted, the contribution margin will be 300. And then the plan 2 adopted, then 370,000. But if the sales are good, plan 1 is adopted, 240,000. Then plan 2 is adopted, 180,000. So, which among these, which the following statements is incorrect? Is correct. So there are two conditions here. Once the results are excellent and then the results are good. Diba yung probability niya kapag excellent is 0.4. And then kapag good, then the probability would be 0.6. 6.6 or 60% the same. So and then after that, then each class or each under condition, may alternative plan that should plan 1 and then plan 2 are being adopted. And then if the sales are good, it's the same only. And then the payoff or the contribution margin. So when solving this type of problem, I presented this simple calculation so that you could better understand yung concept ng expected value here. So under plan 1 and then the plan 2, is good and then the excellent. And then ito yung contribution margin niya and then the payoff. Now plan 1 under good or excellent and then plan 2 good, excellent 2. Good 60% and then 40%, then 240, 300, 180, 370. And then multiply natin yung probability sa contribution margin, 144 and then 120. So add natin 264,000 yung plan 1. And then plan 2, total is 256,000. So it seems that plan 1 generates more revenue or generates more inflows rather than plan 2, which is only 256,000 against plan 1, 264,000. So, ang tinatanong which among the statements which is correct. So, plan 1 should be executed since or adopted since it's more attractive than plan 2. So, the correct answer for number 19 is letter C. Plan 1 should be adopted because it is 8,000 more attractive than plan 2. Next, expected payoff for selling coffee is expected payoff for selling coffee. So it's the same thing that we should do in the preview that we did in the previous problem. A beverage stand can sell either soft drinks or coffee on any given day. If the stand sells soft drinks and the weather is hot, it will make 2,500. But if the weather is cold, the profit will be 1,000. If the stand sells coffee and the weather is hot, it will make 1,900. If the weather is cold, the profit will be 2,000. So the probability of cold weather on a given day at this time is 60%. So meaning to say, we could conclude that the probability for the hot weather is 40%. 100% less 60% equals to 40%, which can be attributed to hot weather. So the expected payoff for selling coffee. So selling coffee and then hot or cold. So pag hot, 40%, then cold, 60%. Then what's the payoff or the contribution margin for each? For coffee, hot, 1,900, and then a cold, 2,000. So multiply lang natin yung 2,000 times 60% and the 1,900 times 40%, then add lang natin yon. So that's the expected payoff for selling the coffee. So the correct answer is letter C, 1,960. Coffee, hot and cold, then the probability and then the inflow or the contribution margin, and then add it so that we could check, so that we could determine the expected rate or the expected value for selling the coffee. Okay, which vendor should the controller recommend to management? I think it's something to do with the cost. So the lesser the cost is, also that's the expected value that we need to choose. Is it PQRS vendor? An entity manufactures industrial machinery and requires 100,000 switches per year in its assembly process. When switches are received from a vendor, they are installed in a specific machine and tested. If the switches fail, they are scrapped and the associated labor cost of 25 are considered lost productivity. The entity purchases off-the-shelf switches as opposed to custom-made switches and experiences quality problems on vendors' products. A decision must be made as to which vendor to buy from during the next serve based on the following information. Is it kay vendor P, vendor Q, vendor R, and then vendor S? So, ang requirement ng industrial machinery is 100 switches. But under that 100 switches, pansin nyo dito, may mga percentage expected to pass the test. For vendor P, 90% yung it will pass, 94% for Q, R, 97%, and for S, 99%. So there are some switches that will be scrapped and will entail additional cost of $25. For this number, for this problem, there are two computations that were adapted kasi magkaiba yung concept ni Wiley and then concept ni Gleim. Ang kay Wiley kasi direct siya in a way na since 100 switches lang, so from that 100 switches, yan lang yung total requirement na kinonsider niya in calculating or in deciding which vendor should be considered in buying these switches. So from that 100,000, since if 90% will pass, then 100,000 times 90% times 35. And then the remaining percentage, which is from P, 10%, then multiplied by 100,000, so 10,000 times 25. Same thing will follow with QRS. So kung kay Q, 94%, so 100,000 times 94% times 37. And then yung scrap naman is 100,000 times 6% times 25. Same as with R and then S. Concept naman ni Gleim, since manufacturing in this industry or this machine or this entity needs to have that 100 switches. Interpretation yan is 100 good switches to deliver the required number of switches needed by the entity. So if that 100 switches, i-incorporate niya or i-gross up niya yung percentage that did not pass the test. So meaning to say kung 100,000 dito, di-divide niya to ng 0.90 so that he could consider yung total units or total switches that the company purchased. For example, 100,000, then yung percentage pass is 90. So divide niya 0.90 so that he could get the total number of switches purchased from P vendor is 111,111. Since the company needed only 100,000, that exists 11,111 is the scrap that will be multiplied by 25. So same thing na nagagawin kay QRS, 100,000 divided by 0.94, and yung excess of 100,000 multiplied by 25, R, 100,000 divided by 0.97, then excess of 100,000 multiplied by 25, is 100,000 divided by 0.99, and excess of 100,000 multiplied by 25. And then yung 100,000 each multiplied by 35 for P, multiplied 37 by Q, by 39 R, and then 40 for S. But under both reviewers, they would come up with the same answer. It's letter D, the vendor S. Same lang din naman yung answer nila. But if you will ask me which reviewer should we follow, for me it should be Gleim. Yung way din ng pag-interpret ko dito sa question na to, nag-correlate siya dun sa approach ni Gleim. Okay. Yan. Ito yung detailed computation niya. Okay, let's do the next one. Okay, it's for 11. For 1. I think we should stop for the time being. Let's have a break for 15 minutes. Let's go back around 4:15, then we could continue. Okay, 15-minute break. Since it's already 4 o'clock.